Today we have Bence Zwecker, the co-founder and CEO of Munch, on the podcast. So welcome, Bence.
Thanks for having me here. Hey, everyone. So brief intro.
Yes, let's introduce yourself.
I'm Bence Zwecker. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Munch. About my personal background, I did competitive kayaking for a long time. That was my absolute love story. And that actually turned into the first business I ever did, which was a kayak manufacturing company. Yeah, well, actually, it was first. I was first buying and selling used kayaks through Facebook Marketplace. I would buy them here in Hungary, put them on the car, sell them through Facebook Marketplace, and usually drive to Italy, and then buy kayaks in Italy and then bring them home. And I was doing that roughly for a year. I think at the peak, I went to Italy like once every month. It was very fun. Made very good money actually for a high school student. And then that turned into a kayak manufacturing story. I joined some other guys who were building kayaks, and I was doing sales and biz dev there. And I was doing that all throughout university. Went to study in the UK, worked a bit, roughly a year in consulting, doing internships. And then during the last year of university, I met my co-founders. And that's when we started Munch. That was now a bit over 3 years ago.
And how did you decide that you want to start a company together? Which are the main characteristics of the people who you saw and said that let's go and do something big together?
I mean, I didn't really know my co-founders actually, other than Albert, but I didn't know him very well either. So honestly, I can't say anything with regards to what I was thinking then, because it was just a big leap of faith. But then it worked out very well. So not much I can say there. I don't think I would start a company with friends, because I think with friends it's harder. And I think that was one of the things that worked very well for us, is that we were not friends, like we didn't know each other very well. And that enabled us, I think, to work a lot better in the early days.
And did all of you have the same idea, or one of you had the idea and the others just joined?
Mm-hmm. Well, fundamentally, it was Albert's idea to work on this, and he found me. And then with Kirill and Botti, I believe it was Botti's idea. And then Albert met Kirill, and then we decided to join forces and work on it together.
I started my company kind of the same way as you did, that we weren't friends, we just knew each other from school. And I can say that throughout the years, we became really good friends. And what are your thoughts about it? That you should not start with friends, but of course, after a few years, you will be friends.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying you necessarily shouldn't. My experience so far has been that, I've never started anything really with friends that got to a serious level, so hard to compare there. I would say that definitely you become friends, because you spend more time with your co-founders than really anyone else, including girlfriend, family, anything. So it's kind of unavoidable.
But that shouldn't be a problem.
No, it's not a problem. It's a nice thing.
You mentioned family, and I think one of the hardest parts of starting a startup is dealing with your family and just telling them that, hey, I'm going to start a startup, I'm going to skip, because you were in consulting, and probably it was like a very good career path that you went to international, you went to London.
North of London, UK.
Yeah, you went to the UK, started a great career there as a consultant, and then just came home and told the family that, hey, I'm going to quit consulting and just work on this idea. And how did your family reply to that?
Yeah, my mom wasn't super happy at first, because I was, right before starting Munch, I was doing an internship at BCG, and then I got a job offered them to join full time. My mom was not initially super excited about the concept of me turning down a very nice job offer. But actually, and then what convinced her, well, quite a bit down the line, but like early on, what made her kind of more safe with my decision, that actually the BCG project manager I was working with was incredibly supportive, and he was like, yeah, you should, if this is there, then you should totally do this. And worst comes to worst, you can always come work in consulting later. And I think that was like kind of the tipping point for her. But then she did give me like money also to like put in the first contribution in the company as a graduation present. So I can't complain overall of her supportiveness. She just, when she compared my salary in the first days of zero with the consulting wages, she kind of thought I was crazy.
I think we've all been there at some point. Do you have any entrepreneurs in your family?
So neither my mom or my dad are entrepreneurs, but actually on my father's side of the family, there's a long history of building businesses. My family actually goes back pretty long in the food industry. So in the 1930s, my great-grandfather built like a sardine canning manufactory in the US in Maine. And to this day, my second and third cousins all operate, or many of them operate actually food businesses in the US. So there's definitely a family pattern with regards to the food industry.
So at least your mom could see that there are some chance that you will be building a huge company.
Well, yes. I mean, we're still very far from where my cousins are, but yeah.
Can you remember the first days of Munch when you started to work together, just the founders? What was your vision? What do you thought that, why are you building this company?
First days, what we were thinking.
What are we thinking?
That's a hard one. Honestly, thinking back, all I can remember is the hustle. Early on, it was a discussion whether we want to build a for-profit or a non-profit, because we were quite excited about the impact, and we were not like fully sure what's the best path to take. And then we decided to go for a for-profit because we realized that we're not Bill and Melinda Gates, and really to have a big impact, you need big money. And the way you can get there is through a for-profit company and not with a non-profit.
I really like this idea that in order to have a great impact, you don't have to be a non-profit organization. You have to build a great business and still have a positive impact.
Yeah, I mean, that's like the most key thing for us is building a business where profits, planet, and people equally contribute. An oil company could offer to pay us like $10 million to I don't know, go dig oil wells. We as Munch would say no, because it doesn't fit into the planet and people part of whatever we do.
Do you have a vision now which you can say in like one sentence? That's why are you doing this right now?
Yeah, we're doing it to eliminate food waste.
Perfect.
And we've talked about this, and I'm also in the food business, and I think that food startups change the business models of restaurants and also the food industry players. I'd speak more about the hospitality part of the food industry, so like restaurant, cafes. And what do you think? Are you changing not just the waste production, but also the business models of restaurants? Because from my perspective, as an economist, that you offer a great marketing solutions for restaurants to pop on the map of Munch, and maybe they would calculate the fact that they can sell more using Munch if they actually plan on having food waste to put on Munch. So what do you think? Are you planning actions against this?
Yeah, I mean, fundamentally, it's not something that we really significantly experience on the platform, because really when this is worth it for restaurants because there's a relatively large minimum discount that they have to give, and there's also the commission after every package sold, the Munch commission. So nobody really, I'm sure there's some players from the hospitality industry which have for short periods of time used Munch with this goal, but fundamentally it's not sustainable in the long run if you're selling, you're cooking more, for example, to sell on Munch. What it can help businesses with is it's like, when you're a business and if you let's say your average demand is 100, but you know that, let's say 3 days a week, you have a demand of 110 portions, let's say. But you're more afraid of your loss. So you still only make 100 every day, but you know that 10 people walk into your restaurant 3 days a week and you can't serve them. What we can help them with is they can safely cook 110 every day. And then the 2 days when they only have a demand of 100, they can sell that 10 on Munch and thus recoup the cost of ingredients and the cost of labor through selling this. And this can offer them, so to say, an additional safety net in terms of managing their supply and demand.
It's a very good option to have for restaurants. So it's not just saving the planet, but also offering a very good business model. So
yeah, it can definitely help them also indirectly generate more revenue by being able to like stock more and use their demand to the maximum.
I feel like it must be hard to always tell your new partners this business model, and how much problem do you have telling your partners and having them understand that you are not another platform, you are not like Volt, but you are here to save the food?
Yeah, so I'll be honest, I haven't done sales for now over a year and a half. I have it on my to-do list to do 1 day of sales, but I haven't gotten around to it. But from my experience, it wasn't very hard. Like for some places you did need to like explain what's up, but luckily by now we have a pretty big reach throughout the country, and actually a lot of people who we talk to asking them to join the platform already know us, and also a lot of people reach out to us that they want to join. So I mean the sales team is doing very well, so I don't think that that's a very hard challenge currently.
Munch has a great community, and you have a Facebook group where there are tons of messages about what could I buy on Munch and everything like that. Is it helping you a lot to understand your partners and customers better, or is it hard sometimes? Can you tell us more about it?
Yeah, I mean, the Facebook groups are like a good kind of social view. I don't know, like they do help us understand our customers, definitely. In terms of understanding our partners, I'm not sure.
Because I see a lot of times that someone says that, oh, this wasn't worth that much or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, the Facebook groups are primarily a very good insight into why we are where we are in terms of, let's say, fake news. Because how these algorithms work, it's actually freaking mind-blowing, is if there's something negative and you get like angry reactions, let's say 10, it spins the post way, way, way more than a post that has love or like reactions. So fundamentally, you can have a post with 10 angry reactions and 10 comments, and it will reach 10,000 people. You can have a post with 300 likes and hearts and the same amount of comments, it will reach 3,000, 4,000. And it's, yeah, if something, it has really helped me understand why our world is where we are. and why the news that spreads in general is the news that spreads. It's a very interesting insight. I know this is totally off track compared to the original topic,
but I think it's interesting.
But I think it's a very interesting thing, like how much social media fucks with our brains.
I mean, not just how much social media fucks with our brains. I've read in a study and also studied psychology just as a hobby, and I read that aggression is the only skill that can be perfected for a human. So like this is actually like, and also the only emotion. You guys need to fact check it, but literally this is what I've been thinking about, that maybe this is why social media is so much wired on actually just promoting hate and negative comments.
Hate triggers people way more.
Yeah.
And love and happiness way less. And so the way the algorithm is built is it gives a significantly bigger weight for hate, surprise, and sadness.
And I think
compared to love and care.
And I think we can say that confidently that we Hungarians have a very good habit of complaining. So maybe that's also something we need to deal with on social media.
Yeah, I think that's just like my experience is that's everywhere on social media. You always have those people. Yeah, just connecting this back to the original topic, why you said, you see a lot of posts where people are unsatisfied. I cannot say the specific percentage, but it's the number of like the complaint ratio for packages is like ridiculously small, like smaller than. I know the industry benchmark, and it's like somewhat the complaint ratios for some like food service, like food delivery providers are. It's like less than 1/10 of what they have. So the chances of you complaining for our package versus complaining after Munch order, I mean, let's say a Volt order or a Food Panda order, significantly less. But sadly, the way the Facebook algorithm works, you do see them. But that's something that we're actually considering is asking people to put angry reactions on stuff they like. I don't know if it would work.
That's genius idea.
Yeah, I do kind of want to fuck with the Facebook algorithm because it generates a lot of hate in me. So causes a lot of active thought.
I think we maybe got off rails a little bit, but I think it's really interesting that being a startup CEO, how many different things you learn along the way. And I think that's one of the things that you wouldn't even think of, that, being Munch CEO, I will be better understanding the Facebook algorithm. So that's really interesting.
Yeah,
but
I've considered writing like a blog post about it somewhere. It's a topic that
I would put an angry face on that, so don't worry. I will boost the algorithm. Let's just ask the guys if everything is okay with the cameras. Sorry. Okay. Just for 1 second. It's okay. I was checking the whole time, and you were talking while that was dead, so it's perfect.
It's a very good conversation so far.
I think so.
I mean, we have amazing hosts. So.
I had some secondary szégyenérzet why Marci was saying that it's great that you are here, but it's all about the hosts. But you reacted perfectly, so thank you for that.
I mean, I didn't want to be like egoistic. Many people think that I'm very egotistical. Actually, I'm not.
I think everyone.
I actually totally agree that like I remember the hosts of the podcast I listened to, not the people who actually went to the podcast.
It's interesting because I listen to podcasts because of the description. There is some people, but you have to be interested in the host as well, because when you say something and I as a listener don't agree with you, I trust my host to say that it's not okay or something. So
yeah, I mean
the interactions which makes this talking interesting.
For me, like I actually have one of the, like, I won't name them, but there's a top startup podcast. And they invite like really interesting people, but I just never can listen to them because I find the hosts so annoying and so like full with themselves that I just cannot stand listening to them. even though they have amazing guests on the show. But yeah, so where were we?
Back to the topics, you mentioned that you were deeply in kayaking, and a quick Google search showed me that you were indeed some big kayaker. And do you miss sports now, and how can you balance personal life and work?
Yeah, so yes, I do miss, like I still do sports, but not enough. Like I try to do like 3-4 times a week, but it doesn't always work out. Also, my shoulder's totally messed up, so that's not ideal. But it is not that easy, because like sports, it's like if you get into the habit of doing it every day, you get addicted, and then you definitely do it every day. The minute you don't do sports every day, I think it's very hard at least for me, it's very hard to keep a rhythm. But what's good is actually one of our partner success and operations manager also used to do kayaking. So we go together in the mornings from time to time. But it is very hectic, and it's one of my big goals in the next coming months to actually put the calendar events in. And also I really want to have a gym in the office, which is something we're having a strong debate over with my co-founders, whether it should be a meeting room or a gym. I'm very much pro gym, but let's see what will happen. Yeah, because I mean, having a gym and saving that 20 minutes of going to the gym and coming back from the gym would be, in my opinion, a game changer.
Yeah, so from my perspective, it's not just like being in the habit of doing it every day, but the times when you get sick, and then those are always the times when you miss the sports, and then it's very bad to get back in the habit of doing it.
Yeah, it's way harder to get back after, like, or also like what's very hard for me other than sickness is traveling, right?
Yeah.
Like I have been traveling quite a lot and will be traveling quite a lot. And then like, you know, I don't want to pay for freaking baggage on like the Wizz Air. So I have to fit everything into one backpack, and then like putting a running shoe in as extra, doesn't necessarily always work out. But yeah, with the next country we expand to, I was just thinking about this and talking about it with Kirill, my co-founder, that we'll just buy a wardrobe there, like on Vinted. Maybe running shoes we have to buy new, and just have it there while the expansion is going on 3-4 months. So, you know, we have stuff there and don't have to like continuously carry baggage, and then just sell it on Vinted at the end.
I think it can be a bit paradox sometimes that you don't have time for anything, so you cannot put sports in your calendar. And what are your thoughts on that? Marcy mentioned the 14-hour workdays. Do you think that on the long term, can you work all the time, or sports can help you to do your work more effectively?
Sports definitely helps to do this work more effective. Like some of my best thoughts, I think, come during sports, like especially running. I think it's just getting to that stage where I feel comfortable enough in terms of my work to you know, to like actually really regularly do it, and like have enough self-discipline to say, okay, this can wait 2 extra hours, and I can go do 2 extra hours of sport. And that's something that, you know, I really need to work on a personal level, because it all comes down to personal decisions, right? I don't think there's never, at least, yeah, okay, that's not true. There are times when there is too much work and you just have to deal with it. But I think 90% of the time, it's just a question of time management and decision making of what do you want to allocate time to. I'm saying that, and then of course, when you're in the middle of a big like push, and like you're swimming in work and like you don't have time for anything, then you think differently. But now that I'm sitting here in a nice air-conditioned room with you guys, it's easy to be smart about this.
I think it's really important that we cannot feel always overwhelmed by work, because a lot of startuppers, I think, just hustling and working. And yes, there are times and there are months when you have to do everything what you can. But on the long run, I think it's really important and you have to get some me time. And I think sport is a great thing to do that. Right now, I don't do any sports, but after this podcast, I will be so inspired.
Yeah, I mean, for me, another thing is until last fall, I never, even when I went on vacation, I was always somehow connected, right? Like I was checking my phone, email, Teams, etc. And last fall, I decided, fuck it. If I go on vacation, I go on proper vacation. I didn't take my laptop. I deleted Teams, Outlook, everything from my phone. And I told them to only call me if the office burns down or if the tax authority wants to fine us. Those were the two reasons. There was something why they did call me, because I forgot to sign something which was incredibly important and only I could sign it. But other than that, it was a 1 week full offline. And that's something which I think is super important, which people find very hard to do. Is honestly, if you're a startup founder, you're not indisposable. The company won't die without you. And as you're building it, especially as you grow, your biggest job is to make yourself dispensable, right? So ideally, if you fuck off for a month to Asia, the company should be fine without you. I'm not saying you can always do that actually in practice, but I believe that if you build a company where the company stops if you go on a 2-week vacation, then you're not doing something right. I mean, and I know that's not that way in the early days, because I didn't take a vacation without my laptop for 2 years. But I think after a certain point, you have to get to that.
And I think building companies is like building systems. So you need to build a machine that actually operates.
Yeah, and actually a fun fact there is, so I don't remember what the first time was, but I went on vacation. We had a massive record week. I went on vacation again. We had a massive record week again. I went on vacation a third time, record week again. So the first 3 times I went on proper vacation, it was always the best weeks in the life of Munch. So I don't know if that's a signal there from the team, but it seemed to work a lot better when I was away.
I think it's a really, really important topic, because I often listen to podcasts and everyone says that you have to be able to disconnect from your company and it should flow without you. And I totally agree that should be a goal and you should work towards that. But I always find it really frustrating when someone doesn't speak enough of the early days. And of course, you mentioned that in the first 2 years, in the first X years, it's not like that, but not days, years. But I think we have to stress it out even more that we all been there when we couldn't get off work, and it's normal. But as you work and you grow and your team grows, I think it's not just important that you can go on a vacation, but right now I'm in a position where I have to think a lot and create strategic decisions. And I often feel that I'm in the office and I cannot do anything because I'm so tired and stressed and everything. So I think my goal in the next few months is that it's my obligation to rest and to be mentally prepared for the day. And in the early days, it was okay if I just went in, looked at my Trello table and did the work and hustled. But right now, it's really important that we have to rest, because I think it's not just about us anymore.
How old are you guys?
I'm 25.
Same.
I'm 22, and I think I'm still in the hustle part, because I feel actually guilty when I'm not working. This is the
that doesn't go away, I guess.
So I mean, yes, I have that also. Yesterday I got home, and my plan for this Sunday was to do nothing, and I saw my girlfriend working, and she works at a VC, and I was looking at some decks, and I saw the deck, and my stomach just went, oh, fuck, I need to work. Even though I had a very elaborate plan for doing nothing the whole Sunday. I did end up doing nothing the whole Sunday. I got over it.
You just felt better about it.
But I did have like 15 minutes when I was looking at her computer and like my mind was going like, oh shit, I didn't do this, I still need to do that,
I think it's the mental part. I wanted to go back to the previous question about the actual mental part of building a business. And this is my conversation with my girlfriend, is that I feel guilty when I'm not with her because she deserves the time, because she's like very kind and all this. And from my perspective, I feel very guilty when I'm with her and I'm not doing the work, because I know that I'm disposable. I completely agree with that you're always disposable and you're always replaceable. And this is a question actually in this regard, that do you think that, like, from one perspective, you must be disposable so that the company need to run, like, must be able to run without you, but on the other hand, you cannot be disposable from your own business. So in the early days, it's like so you're only providing value to the company if you're indisposable. So this is why you're very high value, and it's like,
I mean, I think
but it's a controversial question. So I'm not saying that you must be disposable, but
I think in the early days when you're just a couple people, then it's natural that it doesn't work without you, and then it's a 24/7 kind of thing. Like up until even, I did it longer than I should have, but like even a year and a half ago, like until we had enough customer support coverage, I did customer support on the weekends. Not always, but like if I saw that someone called like a lot or something, I would pick up the phone and like, you know, do customer support on the weekend. Not like sitting down, but just like picking up the phone. And yeah, I think you know, when you're in the early days of the hustle and you don't have a big team, it's 24/7, right? It just doesn't work any other way. Unless you decide to build like in a super chill mode and like you're in stealth and you don't have any clients and like it's all the world, like you have all the time it takes. But for us, for example, you know, we're a consumer facing business, it never stops. Like even on Christmas, it's always going, it's non-stop kind of business. But then as you grow and as you have a team, you know, you delegate a lot of the operational work and team manages a lot of that. And then actually we were just having a discussion about Jared with this. And he was telling us that Jared Schreiber is one of our investors and a successful entrepreneur who now invests in Hungary, just for context. And he was telling us, yeah, well, fundamentally, as you grow, your job is to just make decisions, right? And ideally, less and less decisions, and enable other people to make decisions and be there to help them make the decisions. And that's super hard. But as the team grows, then that's what you need to do. And you're fundamentally the number one enabler of decisions by other people.
I think that's really great advice.
I know it's very hard to grasp, and I'm still struggling with grasping it. And I'm not saying I know how to do it, but Jared's a smart guy.
No, but the mindset is there that your job is not to solve every problem. Your job is to find the right people and build a team
and help them solve the problems.
Yes.
And yeah, if you just solve all the problems all the time, then the team will learn how to solve them. So, yeah.
Yeah, I like this idea. We want to ask you about the early days of the team, and my first question is how big of a team is when you can first remove yourself from the day-to-day job and focus on decision making?
I don't know because we haven't gotten there. So I don't have an answer for that.
But of course you are further from everyday work than in the beginning when there were just the four of you.
Yes, definitely. But like I still, like, you know, it's all of us still have to get our hands dirty from time to time. So it's I don't know when that happens. I'm not sure whether, I have no idea when that will come.
I think it's really interesting because when I was in high school, I helped a lot to a company, and I found it really interesting and really inspiring that the CEO was always there, and he was there building the. I can't speak English, so the CEO was always there with us, and he helped in the physical labor. And I thought at 18 years old that, oh, that's really cool. I want to be a CEO as well, and show everyone that I can do the job best. And what do you think about it? That, of course, right now I think that we hire people to do the jobs better than we would be able to do it. And what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, I think it's not just as a CEO, but I think in general, it's very important that you don't lose touch with the core of the business, right? Like we tried to do this and it never really happened because our customer support team got fully swamped, but we will do it again, is that everyone in the team needs to do 1 day of customer support a year. So you understand, because you can be sitting in, let's say, the IT development, the product development department, okay, not in the product, but like if you're a developer, you might not never speak to an actual live Munch customer, right? So I think it's very important to keep that connection. I mean, like I do subscribe to the concept that CEO is in a certain way the number one servant of the company. Like lead by example, and if you have to get your hands dirty, you have to get your hands dirty. But also after a certain point, I think if you're too involved in the day-to-day, like in terms of operationally, then you're not helping the company, but you're hurting it.
I think that 1 day rule is really important, and I worked at a food delivery company, I think 4 years ago, and I worked at the customer service desk, and there was a policy that every year, 1 day, we had to go to the city and deliver food ourselves, so we can better understand our carriers and our customers. And I think that's a really interesting idea, and everyone should try it, because my company creates videos, and sometimes there is some tension between the camera operators and the editors, because the camera operator could have done something better at the shoot, which would help the editors. So that's why, for example, for me, it's some great advice that we have some people who are just editors and do not go on fields to film, but we should send them sometimes. And I think everyone who's listening to this podcast should think about their businesses and think of this idea that how can we show everyone the core business so we can never lose touch with our customers.
Yeah.
And you mentioned, I could totally agree with that. And I think that I will also implement this. Right now we're in a situation where you got to do all the things, and we have no problem with getting our hands dirty every day, which is fortunate or unfortunate, so time will tell. But I want to steer the conversation in team building to the fact that we talked about, to the topic that we talked about, that you're still in over 90% of hiring meetings. And
yes.
And my question in that regard is that, we know a couple of Munch team members, and we've seen that you have a lot of people who've been there from the early days. And now, as you're well-funded and you have the option to hire not just potential, but also talent, are you still looking right now to hire talent more than potential? So you're looking at the potential of a new hiree, or you want to hire the most talented people, or you have like a secret recipe to somewhere in between?
I mean, this very much depends on the position, right? So fundamentally, I do very strongly believe, and we as a company very strongly believe, that learning is the key to growth, right? And we want to do everything we can in order to enable people to grow on a personal and professional level, right? Like there's a number of team members who have personal mentors. We also, some new hires, we we look at like, okay, we have more senior people and a less senior person, but we feel that the less senior person is more hungry for that position and has more fire. So we've made the call a couple of times when we hired the less senior person and spent the wage difference on bringing on a senior mentor who works with them like 2 hours every week, let's say. You can always do this. Sometimes you need to bring in the most freaking senior person you can find. But we are trying to find a balance between giving people possibility to grow and, people who, for me, what's most important, if I know that someone will, work their asses off to make sure that they're right in that position, then I'm willing to give them the trust of, okay, let's see whether you can do this job or no, right? And that's kind of one of my most important measures when deciding whether we hire someone is, okay, this person might not have the full-on experience of the person who, has an extra 2-3 years of experience. But if I believe that this person will work twice as hard, then I think it's going to be a short catch-up period.
Yeah.
That's perfect because sometimes, or right now, most of the times we find ourselves in a situation where even if you have the money, it's really hard to find the perfect team member with the perfect experience. And I think that's an interesting idea that if you choose to hire someone who is less senior, then you can find a mentor.
Yeah, and really what's most important is, right, like CVs lie, not like on purpose, but really like what I've found is that there's nothing more important than how you actually click with the person. And also, like, I found reference calls incredibly helpful. Like we do 3 reference calls with everyone. Like for every person, we look for 3 references because they're incredibly telling in terms of who the person is we're actually looking to hire. And we've actually said no to quite a few hires who we actually liked and would have hired otherwise. But when the reference calls, when we went through the reference calls, there were some kind of yellow flags, which made us kind of think again in terms of whether we would actually hire that person or no.
And have you ever taken a leap of faith in that you had a reference call that had a negative, response to a person that you wanted to hire, and you hired them despite the fact that you got a negative comment?
I don't think we've ever done that.
I think it's...
I don't think we've hired anyone who we weren't positive about, both in terms of the interview and the reference call. We have hired people without reference call, especially earlier. These past couple months is when we've been really pushing the reference calls, but this is when most of the hiring actually happened. We've never hired someone who had a negative reference.
I don't have a lot of experience with hiring people. Just a half year ago was when I hired a lot of people, and I try to take a leap of faith, and I think that's a really bad advice and bad idea, because you are the CEO, you know your business, and you are here because of your feelings and your thoughts and your instincts. And if you think that anything is wrong with the person, I think you should not let him into the company, because it's a really hard thing to let someone go.
It's hard to let someone go, and culture is very hard to build and very easy to fuck up.
That's a nice transition, because I wanted to ask you about the culture. Can you just share a few numbers with us, that how many employees do you have right now? And after that, I would like to ask you about how hard is it to scale the culture up with the number of employees?
Yeah, so right now we're somewhere around 60 people in total. This includes everyone, so part-time people, full-time people, across the 3 countries that we operate in. In terms of how hard it is to scale the culture, I don't know. Ask me in 6 months. I think it's going to be quite challenging because we're hiring a lot of people, and it's going to be my number one focus to make sure that we don't mess this up, because I think a lot of companies mess this up when scaling rapidly. They bring in a lot of people lose touch with the mission of the company. People come on board and have no freaking idea what they're even supposed to do. And the whole onboarding and flow of how people join the company is not good. And also, I think a lot of companies make compromise hires because they have a big time pressure, like, okay, we need to hire people, we need X position, and then they just settle for the next best candidate. We've had positions which we've had open for 8 months and haven't been able to fill, even though we've had a number of candidates, just because we're not going to compromise on a candidate, right? Like, it's very tempting often, like we're like, oh, but we haven't filled this position for so long, we really should hire someone. But you just cannot compromise on people, because it's a way more costlier to compromise than no.
I suppose there must be some situations where you have to hire someone, because can you tell us something about the position which was open for so long, and how could you fill that void?
It's still not filled.
But how could you so you do the work of that position, or how can you bridge that void in the company?
No, it's other people do it. I won't talk about it in too much details, but it's a big drag on the company currently. It has cost us, but we believe that, if we make the wrong hire, then we stop hiring, let's say, that position, then it will just cost us more in the long run. So maybe there's some roles where, but no, I don't think we've ever made at least we used to make hires where we were like, oh fuck, we just need to hire someone, but those never worked out. So I think for the past 9 months, 10 months, we've been incredibly careful in terms of making sure that we don't hire someone just because we need to hire someone, because that never works.
I think that's actually really important, and I don't think that there are a lot of places where we can hear an honest opinion about this topic. For example, I never talked with anyone before who is this open about hiring the right people is this much important, that you can spend a lot of money and you can put some extra pressure on your company. Just don't hire the wrong people. And I would have saved a lot of money in the past 10 months if I would have done this interview earlier. But back to the culture, can you tell us something about what is your culture and what are some of the main ingredients of your company's culture which you wish every employee would feel that it's our company?
I mean, so it all starts off from this basic concept of the triple bottom line of sustainability, right? So business sustainability, environmental sustainability, and social sustainability. So subscribing to this fundamental concept of us not just building a for-profit business, but also having a positive environmental and social impact. This is kind of the baseline of working at Munch. And what's very important is you have to for me, one of the most important measures of during the interview process is okay, what are you proud of with regards to your work, and what they say for that. Imagine yourself in the future. And
take notes, guys, if you want to work at Munch.
Yeah, I mean, this will be an interesting thing. I was just thinking about this, whether I should say this, and I was thinking I'll say it, because if someone does their research, then they will to find a podcast and watch a 30, 40, I don't know, however long minute podcast, 50-minute long podcast, and finds this question, then they deserve to know this. So yeah,
you heard it right. Apply to Munch.
Yeah, I asked them about what they would be proudest about, and that's very important for me. What like how they react to that and what they say with regards to that. So that's one point. And I won't go through like the whole culture. I'm just bringing a couple points. The second point, which is like incredibly very important for me personally, especially, is do more with less. I hate spending money. Okay, like I'm a somewhat scrappy person. I'll go very far to save some money. Or to be more efficient.
I think as an early stage startup founder, we all know that. But you're not at the early stage now. But
yeah, but I hate spending wasteful money. Like there's nothing that I get more sick about than like just throwing money out the door for something that's useless. Yeah. And I think this is also why we're very much like try to measure everything and make sure everything is efficient and like automate the crap out of anything we can, which is something we're currently working on. So yeah, like doing more with less and making sure that you're efficient in terms of your work and like making decisions. And then this ties into the next point, is we try to give, ownership to people in the company. And I can give ownership if I know that they'll be responsible with their decisions. And this can be a very simple decision, like, okay, when you travel, where do you stay, right? Like, we don't actually currently have a travel policy because I believe that, you should stay in the minimum that you're comfortable with and that fits within, like whatever you want to do. Like, for example, if I go, if I'm traveling and I just stay 1 or 2 nights somewhere, then I'll just stay in a hostel. If I go to Brno, where we have an office, I'll sleep in the office. That's because I'm comfortable with that. I can sleep anywhere. If you tell me to sleep on the floor anywhere, I'm totally comfortable with that also. But I know that for some people, that's not something they're comfortable with. And I won't tell them, okay, you have to stay in a hostel, because, they should choose whatever they're comfortable with. So it's very important for me, and this is something that I want to build and want to keep as much as possible, is giving people enough responsibility and enough like have people to have the judgment to make calls. Okay, how much do I spend on something? And have the guidelines, like, so people can make these decisions. And not say the maximum you can spend on something is X, because if it costs 2X, then I can spin around on my head. The person will not be able to do it with X, right? So, yeah.
Yeah, so you mentioned that you're very careful with money. And when it comes to money, for a startup, you have 2 ways of getting money: making it or getting an investment. And you've recently had a large fundraise. So we want to steer the conversation now to give some ideas about the fundraising. So when was the time that you felt like you need to fundraise? Because you have many partners in Hungary, and looking at your financials, you had a great revenue. But there's like a culture in startups, which I think is very much different from original businesses, that you got to spend to grow, because you can actually force spend the money that you want to spend on growth, so that later it's like, borrowing money from your future self. This is a perspective that you can view investments. So how did you view investments, and when did you decide to raise funds first, and how did you do it? Because you've raised quite a large amount.
Yeah, so first decision in terms of fundraising. I mean, we saw, like, when we started off, we had very little money because we were, still in university. We had some savings. We took out some student loans. So first fundraising decision was like, okay, in order to be able to get somewhere, we need external money, because we won't be able to generate enough revenue ourselves to grow, and we don't have enough money ourselves to get there. That was the first decision. And then, in terms of now, we saw that we saw that we could spend this money well and build a significantly bigger pie with this money. And because of this, we were like, okay, so let's bring on another round, because we want to have, as I said also earlier, we want to have a big impact, right? And in order to have a big impact, you need fundamentally money. And in order to have a big impact, you need to grow. And yeah, you need money for that.
Your last round was over a year ago, if I'm correct?
Yes.
And are you in the fundraising period now?
Yes, we're working on closing a round right now.
And was it harder after the economic crisis than before? How do you view it? Or what was your strategy to...
It's hard to compare because it was a different stage, right? Like totally different round size, and company, like the VCs were looking at different metrics, so quite hard to compare. I mean, I think VCs were a bit more comfortable this time around in terms of decision making, but it wasn't. We had multiple opportunities to raise, so I wouldn't say it was a catastrophe.
You mentioned that you collect a lot of data, and you mentioned in the previous talks that right now, when you are talking with investors, you can show them a lot of data. And what do you think? How can processing and collecting a lot of data help your day-to-day life, and how is it better for the investors?
Yeah, I mean, so in terms of day-to-day life, like it also goes back to really to understand your business, you need data. And in order to see what you're doing well, what you're doing not well, how to do more with less, you need to have a metric for pretty much everything, right? But having a metric for everything also makes it harder, because you need to filter through the data and make sure that each team has the right data available to make the decisions, and they're not like swamped in a swarm of data and then like just looking at 10 different metrics, because these are also often very connected, and like you need to be very specific in terms of what people see, but you also need to enable them to access pretty much everything, because that's, I think, how they can come up with potentially new ideas and like get better in terms of what they do. And then in terms of investors, like this time around, putting together like the data room and everything was significantly easier because we had all the data ready, right? Like it wasn't like we created anything for investors. It was literally, we just took existing data and slapped it on a Notion, which was so much easier than the last time around.
What I feel, I've been trying to fundraise a couple of times, and we've had signed term sheets and given back twice the investment, like before actually finalizing the investment. And I'm a huge fan of bootstrapping, because what I think is that investments, as an economist, is like a bullet into your leg, because it's an interesting topic. So I want your opinion on it. We have a Hungarian businessman called Tibor Kulcsár, and this is one of his ideas. He's a very controversial business guy. But what he says, I've read his book, and it's one of the most interesting books I've read. He has built a software company, and he says that if you get an investment too early, then it's... So I don't say that the investments are bad. I think that the investments are very good, but you need to be very careful when you get an investment, because if you get an investment before you actually learn the fundamentals of business, then you'll be in a very safe position of not to get the skills that are needed to actually develop the business. Because if you have the money, then you don't need to focus that much on sales. You don't need to focus that much on business development. So it's it's a hard topic, and I think you gotta be very disciplined to be able to handle the investment. So, and also you're very young in terms of being a startup founder and also a business owner. So did you have any, I want your comment on the previous idea, and also I want to ask you that, did you have any like hardships of fundraising and taking, like did people and did also VCs take you seriously when you went there to fundraise?
So I can answer the second question very easily, yes. And no hardship of that kind. And then in terms of the question with regards to getting an investment too early, well, I mean, I think that really depends on the investment amount, right? Like if someone would give you $1 billion on day one, then yeah, sure, maybe that makes you lazy. But if you get an investment amount that lasts you 18 months in terms of runway, or 12 months or 24 months, you got to work your ass off to get to the next round. So,
and I think the investments in Hungary are not that huge to...
Hungarian investments amounts are good enough to take your equity and make sure that you work your ass off over the next 12 months.
Was your first ticket Hungarian, or did you manage to find some investors abroad?
Our first ticket was from Hungarian Angels. And just one thing, I mean, what I've noticed here in Hungary is really like those first tickets, unless you've sold your previous startup for 100 million, like the Balabit guys, the first tickets are usually so incredibly small and end up diluting founders quite a bit, that it's in international comparison, it makes Hungarian startups way less competitive if you mess up, so to say, and raise the first round at a small valuation, because let's say you don't have the money or you can't bootstrap to that stage. So I think
this is one of the reasons why we are not accepting investments, or why we didn't.
Yeah, I mean, because what's also wrong here is, I think, like, and I know it's a law constraint also, is like startups abroad, when they do like 100K ticket or 200K ticket, they don't do a priced round, right? They just do like a convertible or a safe or something like that. And with that, like, you know, you can take 100K, you can take 200K, because it will be priced, you know, based on the next round. So you can take a couple of these. Well, in Hungary, what I've seen with many companies is that, you know, they take 100K and they do it with a priced round, and they're priced at like, you know, 600, 700, 800K, whatever it is, get diluted. And what can 100K get you? 100K is not a lot of money. Even $1 million is not a lot of money. It seems a lot, but then when you actually have to spend it,
it's easy to spend it.
And you've recently been to Poland, and I've also did my like mandatory practice in Warsaw, and Warsaw got my heart, because, you know, actually Warsaw and Budapest were in the same situation after the regime change. And I've been speaking to many of the Polish businessmen, and they told me that in the first 3 years after the regime change, they were traveling to Budapest to actually learn from Hungarian businessmen how to actually do business.
This is what Romanian people also told me.
Yeah, and what I've discovered is that they are light ages ahead of us, even though we've started from the same position.
We were ahead.
Yeah, and also we were ahead.
Like, I mean, Romania, same story. Like, I've speak to startup people from Romania, and they were like, man, even 10 years ago, we were looking up to Hungary. 15 years, 20 years ago especially, and now Romanian startup ecosystem ages ahead of us.
Yeah, so what do you think? I have a couple of ideas. This is why we actually started big, and this is why I told Aaron to let's go to Warsaw. Let's look at, we literally traveled to Warsaw to look at what MIT Enterprise Forum, I went to MIT Enterprise Forum, CIC, and also went to all these other events, because we gotta build this ecosystem in Hungary. And what are your thoughts? How can we become, from our current position, competitive on a global scale? Or is there any chance that Hungary will ever become competitive, or will we ever get on the map? That's like the most pure version of the question.
I think it's, I mean, I don't have the silver bullet, right? Like, I think a lot of smart people are working on it. But I think it's a combination of we need people want to do startups. That's most important, because if you don't have startup founders, you can have everything else, but you need smart people to want to do startups in Hungary. In order to have that, you need the right, like, fundamental support system and law regime, etc., that enables that to happen. which I think with the work of Startup Hungary and Balogh Petya and Jared and like a number of people in the ecosystem, I think we're on a very good path in terms of having like the right support structures in there. And then the third point is like fundamentally you need competitive private capital, right? Because as I said, if you take a wooden sword to a gun shootout, then you're probably going to lose. And startups are, that's kind of the story. If you're fighting with a competitor who raised a 4 million euro seed round and you raised 300K, then it's like taking literally a wooden sword against an AK-47. Chances are you're going to lose. That's roughly it.
What do you think about the community? Because Munch has a huge part of the Hungarian startup community. I think you hold a lot of events where we can meet and talk to each other. What do you think, which would be nice if we would have in Hungary?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of really great work being done by Startup Hungary, and I personally really enjoy the events. I mean, one thing that is like a personal pain point, and I kind of decided actually this weekend that I'll make it my personal mission to change, is that we're always exclusively or pretty much exclusively focused on B2B SaaS, which is great. But B2B SaaS isn't the only thing that exists in the world. It is true that it's the easiest probably to scale from a small country like Hungary, but I do actually want to maybe try and bring people with like marketplace experiences to Hungary to maybe take part in the community, also bring some marketplace investors to Hungary and help people to think about stuff other than exclusively B2B SaaS.
We'd be very glad if you could do it under the umbrella of BIG. So if you want to start a project like that, we'd be happy to collaborate.
Sure.
I think I just want to ask you real quick that we talked about it in the before talks, but do you have an exit strategy? And if yes or if not, what do you think about in general? Is it okay to have an exit strategy and building a startup so you can sell it at the end?
Yeah, I don't think building a startup to sell works. Like you're fundamentally, yeah, and that might be wrong. This is a very subjective personal opinion, but I believe that you need to be super passionate with regards to what you do. And for me right now, thinking about selling what we do is, no, we want to build something super amazing with a super amazing impact and a big impact. And, eventually down the line, if, it comes a day when someone wants to buy it, then yeah, that's great. But I want to build a business where we optimize for the business and optimize for building as big of a business as possible. And if you succeed in doing that, then eventually someone will want to buy you, right? But along the way, you should, have an amazing time building it and feel like that, actually feel personally connected to what you do and feel super proud about it and feel like yeah, this is something I want to do for the next 4, 5, 6, 8, whatever, how many years. Because otherwise I think you'll burn out quite quickly and you won't necessarily have what it takes to get to the finish line, wherever that should be. Especially considering that even if you do sell your company, you're still around for another 1 or 2 years at least. Like nobody sells a company and just walks off to the Bahamas after. So you better love what you do.
That's some great advice.
Yeah, but we do have an exit strategy to the podcast.
So, nice transition.
It's very good that you actually not having an exit strategy is kind of an exit strategy, right?
I guess, yes.
Yeah. Our exit strategy is that I've went to a course and it was one of the most perspective changing courses of mine. And the most important things that I remember from those courses is the last 3 advices that the people gave us. And the last question was, if you could go back to your younger version, to the Bence who started Munch, and you could sit down for the coffee, but you could only tell him 3 advices, what would those 3 advices be?
Yeah, I knew this would be coming, and I should have prepared. I mean, it's very hard right now because my mind is actually, I had a very operative week last week. And the first thing that springs to my mind is don't start with a Hungarian company. Do a US, UK, or whatever, actually either a US or a UK or maybe an Irish company, and have that as your holding company if you're building a startup. That's number one, because I'm struggling a lot with that right now. Number 2, I think is in relation to hiring, is just never believe that. So if when you're hiring, if you have a CV that looks perfect on paper, but you have the tiniest negative feeling about it, always go with your feelings and never trust like, yeah, but this person should have all the experience, all the whatever, because your feelings will be right. At least so far for me, it's always been, my feelings were always right. If we ever hired someone based on CV, it never worked out. Third advice, going back 2 years, let's see. Yeah, don't raise the price round as your first round.
That's some really practical, but some really great
Very
advice.
practical also. Yeah, sorry for not being more smarter and
No, I think those are
sexy
great
with my
advices.
advices. But
I think these are also sexy advices.
I do like the second advice.
Yeah.
Bence, our time's up. Thanks for being here. It's been
thank
an
you for
honor.
having me.
And see you sometime soon.
Yes,
Take care.
take care.
Thank you guys as well for watching the podcast, and stick around for the next episode. So thank you, Bence, as well. And
That's a wrap. I always wanted to say this.